Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on Warriors Amongst Men, Spirit Amongst Flesh. I make this video today for the warriors out there that are battling with the mental health right now, because you're not alone and this is a very real phenomenon. And you know what? Negative thoughts are not a weakness. It's actually a sign of spiritual warfare. And I've actually just finished recording a new podcast with Errol Kaya on our other channel, Natural Intelligence, where we actually speak about the weaponization of the atmosphere and probably some stuff we're going to get in trouble for. That video is going to be dropping this Sunday, so if you're interested, make sure to go over to that channel. The link will be in the description box, and subscribe so you don't miss it. It's going to be dropped this Sunday. And in that video we spoke a little bit about the thought processes that we have and intruders that can come into our mind and make us do certain things. So it's going to be a much more in-depth version of this video that I'm sharing with you today, but I wanted to break down today that your thoughts are not your own. I want to talk a little bit about the mind, because the mind is just a tool and your consciousness is the operator of the mind. But your mind is like a radio station, and just because you're listening to a certain radio station, it doesn't mean that you chose it. And our ultimate superpower is that ultimately we are the commanders of, choosing the station in our minds and the thoughts that we have. And when we consciously choose a thought, then it is so much more powerful than any intruders that come into our mind. So remember that. But not every thought that we have is our own. And yes, it has a lot to do with the weaponization of the atmosphere. So I really want you to not miss this video that's coming up on our podcast, Natural Intelligence. But I don't want to talk about the weaponization of the atmosphere in this video. I just want to talk about what goes on in the process of a warrior, because a warrior doesn't fight his thoughts, right? A warrior is just aware of the thoughts and then chooses what he's going to tune into, right? So what causes us to have negative thoughts? There's many different things, but first of all, the old patterns that we have in our mind, our conditioning, our survival programming that has been sort of programmed into us since birth. And survival programming doesn't have to be a negative thing, it's just a neutral thing, because first of all, when you're born, your mind is downloading programs from its environment just so that you can survive in this world, right? You're obviously learning about the world as soon as you're born. So obviously you got to be careful with our children when they first come into this world, because they're obviously downloading programs that are going to last them forever. But the system know this, and believe it or not, the satanic network has been putting themselves in positions of power for a long time. And this is why a lot of conspiracy theorists know that Satanists run the world. And it's not a theory, it's just obvious. Once you start to wake up, you'll notice this. Now, what they do is they tend to traumatize you at birth, especially real souls, chosen ones, the warriors, the people that have having a spiritual awakening. It's usually because you've been through some sort of trauma when you was younger, and now you're becoming more aware of how this pattern in your subconscious is affecting your life. Maybe, yes, it is appearing in your life in a form of an addiction or something, and that's how it all starts, the whole process of you becoming more aware of your programming, right? Because sometimes we have to be, I call it the slingshot effect. You got to be, your life like sort of suffers until you wake up, right? And then you can consciously override the programming. But we have to, in becoming a warrior and overcoming this programming, we really have to obviously be aware of the trauma that we've been through. And this includes small, minute things that you would probably not even be aware that was a trauma, but obviously they're injecting babies. This is a traumatizing process. What are they putting in these injections? And also, you got to be aware of, you know, you're stabbing a baby basically as soon as they're born, you know, and that's just one thing. But even circumcision when they're first born, this is a traumatizing process for a baby, unless it's obviously absolutely needed, which most of the time it is not. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, guys, but we have to accept where we are. A lot of awakened people and spiritual, you know, powerful souls that come into this reality, the non-human entities that exist beyond visible light, they are aware of the souls that they need to traumatize as soon as they come into this realm. And I know I'm going a bit deep for you, but maybe this is the place to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Here we are in nature, so we can say whatever we like, right? It's humans, it's freedom of speech, which is a human right. Now, there may be other traumas that you're aware of, and it's left you with certain abandonment issues or something like that. But you've got to be aware of what happened to you in the first sort of 6-7 years of your life. And even after that, traumatizing experiences, they have a very heavy impact on your subconscious. So learning about your sort of traumas and any sort of traumatic experience you've been through is going to be very helpful for you in identifying your patterns that is keeping you in a matrix. It's keeping you in reoccurring patterns that are probably destroying your life. So that's one thing, and the enemy uses these patterns against you, and the negative thoughts that we're having that are overriding our mind, we are sometimes identifying with them, and it's not even, you know, it's not the right thing to be doing. It's not even you, it's an old version of yourself. And when we're evolving on this process, because that's what awakening is, right? Evolving. Look at the word evolve, it even has the word love in it backwards. So you got to be loving with yourself and others. You got to be forgiving of yourself and others. And we have to recognize that, you know, yeah, we may have these certain frailties and weaknesses, but once we're aware of them, now we can override these thought patterns, right? Because that's ultimately our superpower, is the ability to evolve. I used to love watching Dragon Ball Z when I was younger, because they would get an enemy that would be powerful, more powerful than the last, and the heroes in the anime series, they would always have to go and train to evolve so that they could beat the new enemy. And I find it's a little bit like that in life. We have to evolve through the process, through this journey, right? So that's one thing you need to be aware of, is the subconscious traumas. But another thing is your environment. Like Nikola Tesla said, everything, if you want to understand the universe, then think in terms of energy, frequency and vibration. We live in a holographic energetic information field. A holographic energetic information field. And as we're walking around, yes, we're picking up information from our environment, and that's why I spend a lot of time in nature, because that's obviously powerful natural frequencies. But you know, when we're going around in the city, there's a lot of information, it's all going into the subconscious, but you're also picking up on other people's thought forms, thought fields, you know. And they even say that 1% of people meditating can change a whole city's vibration. So don't think, oh, you know, get that little me syndrome where you think that, well, I'm only me, how much can I change in the world really? It doesn't matter how many views you get on YouTube, it matters about speaking into existence. Speaking what, you know, the new reality into existence, and that comes from us, it comes from our inner strength, right? Now, our environment doesn't just consist of the visible light spectrum, right? That's only a tiny band of frequency. There's many energetic information fields around us, but the one thing I want you to be aware of is that we always have the power to override it. So, for example, you've probably noticed this when you go into a room and you automatically feel like some anxiety or something. It's most of the time it's because you're picking up on someone else's energy field, and now you're picking up on their energy, and you're gonna have to alchemize it by understanding how affirmations work. One of the affirmations I always use is, out of this situation only good will come, because it always works. I am open and receptive to all good. These sort of affirmations are very powerful. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you guys today is, be aware that no matter what the thoughts are that we're having, the negative thoughts that we're having, sometimes, yeah, it can, if you take action on these thoughts, it can have a really damning effect on your life, you know. But ultimately, a warrior must become aware of the thoughts that we're tuning into and the stations that we're picking up on, you know. And I hope by having this awareness, you're able to recognize the power that you have to override it. Because you've got to ask the question, why do we start having all these negative effects? What is that all about? Like, it's not fair, surely. But at the same time, like, the resistance that we feel is because we're awakening and our frequency is rising. So as your frequency rises, the resistance also rises. But in the gym, if you want to get stronger, you do resistance training, right? And it's the same in the mental battlefield, and the spiritual warfare is for the hearts and the minds of the people. And that brings us into the spiritual side of this, because how do you know if it's an interference from external or it's just your own thoughts? Well, are the thoughts you're having connected to the old you or the you that you're becoming? Are they destroying your purpose? For example, if you want to make a video, like for me, if I get an idea for a video, a interfering thought might be, oh, who would want to listen to you? Like, you know, that sort of thing. It goes against your purpose. It goes against the truth, right? So if you have a good, strong moral compass, if you know who you are and what your mission is, then you can now quite easily identify thoughts that are not your own. Does that make sense? So it's really crucial for us to sometimes, look, you can't always choose your environment, but you can choose how you react to it. And it's important for us to have a strong internal guidance system when it comes to negative thoughts, you know. Yeah, so that's about all I want to say on this topic. But let me know if you're going through any of this, because the only way to overcome it is to remember what the solution is. The solution is to have hope, faith and belief in what you know to be true, in the path that you strongly want to, you know, take yourself down. Because at the end of the day, the thoughts we have are going to affect the actions we have, and the actions we have are going to quite clearly affect the timeline that we end up in. And as a spiritual awake individual, I believe we have responsibility to override the satanic network, right? Their influence on society, they try to impact the masses, but they do not realize that the individual has the power to override the masses as well, right? But it only comes about when your frequency rises, and your frequency only rises once you master this spiritual awareness, right? And you master the intruders when they come into your brain, you know. And I've had many miracles occur in my life where you'd think, well, how could that possibly happen? Doesn't make logical sense. But it was because I used powerful affirmations. It's because I understood the power of my mind. It's because I know how to meditate, and I use these tools as a human being that I have to override the satanic energy, right? Because it's all well and good having belief and faith in God, but God is also asking you to have faith in yourself, to step up to the challenges of life. You know, we came here for a reason, and the enemy wants you to believe that you have no purpose, when that doesn't even make sense, because everything in nature has a purpose. Everything has a purpose, right? I don't know, look around. The ants have a purpose. All the bugs and everything has a purpose. The plants have a purpose. They're providing oxygen, right? Look, I'm not a nature expert. I'm not David Attenborough, but all I do know is that everyone has a purpose, and we're all cogs in the wheel of the of the macrocosm. But realize your power today, and live for a purpose, live for your purpose, and be a warrior. Okay, so if you like this video, please like and subscribe, show us some love, and speak to me in the comments, and I look forward to chatting with you. All right, peace and love, my friends.